People have called you too sensitive your whole life. You weren't putting it on. You were just watching something, or sitting with someone, or hearing a piece of music, and the reaction arrived before you had a say in it. And if you cry easily, you've probably spent years asking the same quiet question. What is wrong with me? Nothing. But the mechanism behind it is more specific than most people realize, including you. Most people learn early that emotional displays come with a cost. Research published in Motivation and Emotion found that crying in professional or public settings is perceived as weakness by the majority of observers, regardless of what triggered it. So people adapt. They read the room, suppress the signal, keep moving. That's a rational response to an environment that penalizes visibility, not a character flaw. But what that model never accounted for is this: the people who cry easily weren't failing to adapt. Their nervous systems were doing something fundamentally different. And once you understand the actual mechanism, the question changes entirely. Your nervous system processes deeper, not louder. People assume that crying easily means the response system is running too hot, that the calibration is off. And they're not entirely wrong about the effect your reaction does arrive before other people's faces have moved. It stands out. But here's what's actually happening. Dr. Elaine Aron identified what she called the highly sensitive nervous system present in roughly 20% of the population. Her research, published in the Journal of Personality in 1996, found one defining characteristic: not more fragile, more thorough. Your brain takes the same input as everyone else and runs it through more layers, more associations, more memory, more meaning. And sometimes when that processing completes, what comes out is tears. Not because something broke, because something finished computing that the people around you haven't started on yet. You feel things that don't belong to you. And people have decided what that means about you. Dramatic, unstable. They watch you respond to something that has nothing to do with you. A stranger's face, a scene on a screen, music on the radio, and they conclude you can't keep it together, that your reactions aren't proportional. They're not entirely wrong about what they observed. They're completely wrong about what it means. Neuroscientist Marco Iacoboni at UCLA, whose research on mirror neuron systems was published in Nature Neuroscience, found that certain individuals have a substantially more active mirroring response, meaning the brain doesn't cleanly separate happening to me from happening to someone else. When they observe pain, their own pain circuits activate. When they observe relief, the same. You're not being swept away. Your brain is running someone else's emotional experience in parallel with your own. Evolution kept that wiring around because groups that could anticipate and synchronize before the verbal signal arrived functioned better. That's not a malfunction. That's old deep code doing exactly what it was built to do. You read the room before anyone else has registered there's something to read. There's a moment, usually before anything has been said, where you already know what's about to happen. A shift in someone's breathing. A word chosen too carefully. A drop in energy that nobody else has clocked as significant yet. A colleague walked into a meeting that had been running smoothly for 20 minutes. She didn't say a word. But within 3 minutes, she'd quietly redirected the conversation away from something that was building into a confrontation between two people at the table. Her manager asked her afterward how she'd known. She said 4 words: "I felt the temperature change." That's not a figure of speech. Psychologist Lisa Feldman Barrett, whose work on emotional granularity was published in Current Directions in Psychological Science, found that people with higher emotional sensitivity don't simply feel more, they distinguish more. They have finer resolution on the emotional spectrum. What other people receive as undifferentiated noise, you receive as specific signal. You're not oversensitive to what people are feeling. You're operating with better instruments. But here's something I need you to sit with for a moment. Have you spent your life managing your sensitivity, containing it, routing around it, making sure it doesn't inconvenience anyone? Or have you actually understood it as a system, as a source of data, as something that tells you things other people don't have access to? Both look similar from the outside. The difference is whether you're fighting your own wiring or learning to read it. Your tears are carrying specific information, and people have mistaken that for instability. The assumption runs deep. In meetings and difficult conversations, in any room where you've ever let something show the conclusion people draw, is that you've lost the plot. That you're unreliable under pressure. That when things get hard, you fall apart first. The label sticks because the expression arrives before you can manage it. But here's what's actually in those tears. Dr. Ad Vingerhoots, a psychologist at Tilburg University, who has spent over 2 decades studying the psychology of weeping, published research showing that emotional tears are preceded by specific cognitive appraisals, a felt sense of helplessness, a collision between expectation and reality, a recognition that something meaningful is at stake. Your tears aren't random. They're targeted. They tell you exactly what costs you something, which value was crossed, which thing mattered more than you'd admitted. People who don't cry easily aren't necessarily stronger. They're often just less informed about what's actually registering inside them, and that gap has consequences. You built a system to suppress it, and that system has been running at a cost you haven't fully accounted for. The message arrived early. Your reactions were too much, too intense, too visible for the rooms you were in. Maybe nobody said it directly, but it was communicated clearly enough that by the time you were an adult, you'd already built the infrastructure to contain it. The timed exhale, the precise head turn, the practiced neutrality that holds everything in place just long enough, and the system is good. You function. Nobody sees through it most of the time. But research by psychologist James Gross at UC Berkeley, published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, found that habitual emotional suppression doesn't reduce the emotional experience, it reduces the expression while increasing the physiological load. You still feel it. You're now also managing the feeling of feeling it. And over time, the signal that was supposed to tell you something gets intercepted before you can read it. If you're a man, this runs deeper than you probably know. You were handed a set of rules about what your face is allowed to do, usually before you were old enough to question where those rules came from. The compression became automatic, and at some point, the compression started feeling like composure. It isn't. It's a workaround you built because the original thing had nowhere safe to go. The men who cry easily and actually understand why, who've stopped apologizing for the data their system produces, are operating with a significant advantage over the ones who are still just holding it. If you follow for more on the psychology of quiet intensity, there's more on exactly this. Seismographs don't apologize for registering what the ground does. They don't get praised for the precision of their instruments. They just measure accurately, continuously, without asking for permission. The people who feel deeply are usually the ones who see clearly first. Which of these 5 signs hit closest for you? Drop it in the comments. I read them. And if you know someone who's been told their whole life they feel too much, send this to them. Sometimes just having the mechanism explained changes the relationship with it entirely.